The police report filed on November 12, 2023, listed the incident simply as a civil disturbance on 4th Avenue. But those who work the night shift at the Seattle precinct know the truth. That night didn't just mark the start of the most violent gang war in the city's history. It was the night two worlds collided in the back of a black sedan. One was Eliana Korvs, a 24-year-old archivist just trying to get home. The other was Declan Cale, the man the FBI calls the Ghost, a figure so feared even his rivals refused to speak his name on wiretaps. She thought she was sharing a ride to save $20. She didn't know she was stepping into a getaway car. This is the story of how a rainy Tuesday changed everything. The rain in Seattle doesn't wash things clean. It just makes the grime slicker. It was 10:42 p.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of night where the streetlights fracture against the wet pavement, creating a kaleidoscope of neon and misery. Eliana Korvs stood under the dripping awning of the Pioneer Square station, shivering in a coat that was too thin for November. Her phone screen was cracked, the battery icon blinking red at 4%. She stared at the Uber app, watching the little car icon spin in circles before the notification flashed. Driver cancelled. Unbelievable, she whispered, her breath pluming in the cold air. She was an archivist at the city library, a job that required patience, silence, and an eye for detail. But right now, patience was a luxury she couldn't afford. She had missed the last express bus, and the streets of downtown Seattle were emptying out, leaving behind only the shadows and the desperate. A pair of headlights cut through the deluge. A black SUV, distinctively sleek and aggressive against the backdrop of worn-out taxis, slowed to a crawl. It wasn't a standard Uber. It looked like the kind of car that transported diplomats or bodies. The window rolled down halfway. "Get in!" The voice was low, baritone, and brooked no argument. Eliana took a step back, clutching her tote bag to her chest. She couldn't see the driver, but she could see the passenger in the back seat. He was illuminated by the passing streetlights, a sharp jawline, dark hair swept back, and eyes that looked like shattered flint. "I didn't order a private car," Eliana said, her voice shaking slightly. "Your driver cancelled. I saw the notification on your screen from the light," the man said. He didn't look at her. He was scanning the street behind them. "This isn't a suggestion, miss. It's not safe on this corner tonight. I'm going north. If you're going north, get in." Eliana looked around. The street was deserted. A group of men had gathered 2 blocks down, shouting drunkenly. The wind bit through her blouse. The logic of fear warred with the logic of survival. The car was warm. The street was dangerous. She opened the door and slid in. The interior smelled of expensive leather, ozone, and something metallic, like old pennies. Copper. "Thank you," she said, pulling the door shut. The silence that followed was heavy, almost pressurized. The car accelerated smoothly, merging into the traffic with a quiet power that suggested a modified engine. "Where to?" the driver asked. He was a large man, his neck thick, his eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror. "Capitol Hill, near the roastery, please," Eliana said. The man in the back seat shifted. For the first time, he looked at her. Declan Cale was handsome in a way that felt predatory. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than Eliana's yearly tuition. But she noticed a discrepancy. His right hand was pressed firmly against his left side, hidden beneath the fold of his jacket. "You're an archivist," he stated. It wasn't a question. Eliana blinked. "How did you—" "The ID badge on your lanyard, and the smell of old paper and dust," Declan said, turning his gaze back to the window. "A quiet life." "It pays the bills," Eliana replied defensively. She shifted, and her knee brushed against a duffel bag on the floor between them. It was heavy, and it clinked. "Sorry," she murmured. "Don't touch that," Declan snapped. The sharpness in his voice made her freeze. He exhaled a ragged sound that betrayed pain. "Apologies. It's fragile." The car hit a pothole, and Declan winced, his hand tightening on his side. A flash of lightning illuminated the cabin, and for a split second, Eliana saw it. The dark stain spreading across the white dress shirt beneath his jacket. He was bleeding. Eliana's heart hammered against her ribs. The metallic smell, it wasn't pennies, it was blood. "You're hurt," she whispered. The driver's eyes snapped to her in the rearview mirror. "Eyes front," Declan commanded the driver softly. He turned to Eliana, his expression unreadable. "I had a disagreement with a window. It's fine." "That's a lot of blood for a window," Eliana said, her archivist instincts kicking in. She was used to piecing together stories from fragments, and the fragments here were screaming danger. "You need a hospital. Harborview is 3 blocks east." "No hospitals," Declan said. His face was paling, the adrenaline fading. "And if you want to get home to your quiet life, Eliana, you will stop looking at my shirt." He knew her name. Of course, he had read her badge. But the way he said it sounded like a file being opened and stamped. The car slowed as they approached a red light. Suddenly the driver cursed. "Grey sedan, 4 o'clock. They made us." Declan's demeanor shifted instantly. The pain vanished behind a mask of cold efficiency. He reached into the duffel bag Eliana had kicked. He didn't pull out a laptop or documents. He pulled out a matte black Sig Sauer suppressor. Eliana stopped breathing. "Get down," Declan said. It wasn't a shout. It was a fact. "What?" "Floorboard. Now!" Eliana scrambled off the seat, curling into a ball in the footwell, clutching her bag over her head. The car surged forward, blowing the red light. Tires screeched. A popping sound, like firecrackers wrapped in a towel, erupted from behind them. Pop, pop, pop. Glass shattered above her. The rear windshield. "Keep it steady, Miller," Declan growled. He was leaning out the window now. Eliana heard 2 distinct thuds, louder and heavier than the firecrackers. The car swerved violently, throwing Eliana against the center console. She bit her tongue, tasting iron. The chase lasted 3 minutes, but it felt like 3 years. Then, silence. Just the hum of the engine and the relentless rain. "We're clear," the driver, Miller, said, his voice tight. Eliana was trembling so hard her teeth chattered. A hand reached down. Declan's hand. It was steady, despite the blood loss. "You can get up now." She pulled herself onto the seat. The back window was gone. Rain sprayed into the luxury interior. Declan was wrapping a handkerchief around his side, pulling his jacket tight to hide the weapon. You shot at them," Eliana stammered. "They shot first," Declan said, as if that settled a moral debate. "You were in the wrong place at the wrong time, Eliana. I apologize for the inconvenience." "Inconvenience? You call a gunfight an inconvenience?" The car pulled up to the curb a block away from her apartment. Declan looked at her, and his eyes were tired. "Go home. Lock your door. Forget the car. Forget my face. If you talk to the police, the men in that grey sedan will find you before the officers finish typing the report. Do you understand?" Eliana nodded, unable to speak. "Go." She scrambled out of the car, stepping into a puddle. She didn't look back until she was inside her building lobby, breathless and soaked. She watched the tail lights of the black SUV disappear into the mist. It wasn't until she was safe in her apartment, stripping off her wet coat, that she realized she was still clutching something that wasn't hers. In the chaos, when she had scrambled from the floor, her tote bag had tangled with the strap of a small leather ledger from the duffel bag. She held it up. It was a black moleskin notebook, battered and water-stained. Embossed on the corner were the initials DK. She opened the first page. It wasn't a numbers. It was a list of names, judges, councilmen, police captains, and next to each name, a dollar amount and a date. Eliana Corves, the archivist who spent her life organizing history, had just stolen the insurance policy of the most dangerous man in Seattle. The next morning, the city of Seattle woke up to gray skies and headlines. Eliana sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the local news on her tablet. The headline read, "Shootout in Sodo District leaves 2 dead. Police suspect gang retaliation." The news anchor, a woman with perfect hair and a somber expression, spoke about the rising tensions between established crime syndicates. They showed grainy CCTV footage. A grey sedan crashed into a pylon. No footage of a black SUV. Eliana looked at the notebook sitting on her placemat. She hadn't slept. Every creak of the floorboards in the hallway sounded like footsteps. She had debated burning the book. She had debated calling the tip line. But Declan's voice echoed in her head. "The men in that grey sedan will find you." If she went to the police, she would have to explain how she got it. She would have to admit she was in the car. And if the names in this book were real, Captain Henderson, Judge O'Reilly, then the police were the last people she could trust. She had to go to work. Routine was her only camouflage. She dressed in her usual beige cardigan and slacks, hiding the notebook at the very bottom of her tote bag, beneath her lunch and a stack of library coding forms. The Seattle Public Library's central branch was a glass and steel marvel, a cathedral of information. Eliana worked in the sub-basement, in the Special Collections Division. It was quiet, climate-controlled, and usually empty. At 10:15 a.m., she was scanning a series of land deeds from the 1890s when her co-worker, Sarah, popped her head in. "Hey, El, there's a guy upstairs asking for you. Says he's a donor, wants to verify some archives." Eliana's stomach dropped. "Did he give a name?" "No, just said he's from the Kyle Foundation. Handsome guy. Scary intense, though. He's in the main atrium." "Kyle. Declan Kyle." Tell him I'll be right up," Eliana said, her voice sounding thin to her own ears. She waited until Sarah left, then grabbed her bag. She couldn't go upstairs. If he was here, he knew she had the book. He wasn't here to donate. He was here to clean up a loose end. Eliana moved toward the service elevator. She knew the building better than anyone. There was a loading dock exit on the west side that spilled out into the alleyway. She pressed the button. The doors slid open, and she froze. Standing in the elevator wasn't Declan. It was a man she had never seen before. He was shorter, stockier, with a scar running through his eyebrow. He wore a maintenance uniform that was too clean. "Eliana Corves?" he asked. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Who are you?" "My employer would like a word. He believes you found something of his last night." "I don't know what you're talking about." Eliana stepped back, hammering the close door button. The man stuck his boot in the gap. "Don't make this loud, sweetheart. Mr. Moretti just wants the book." Moretti, the rival, the grey sedan. Eliana realized with a jolt of horror that Declan wasn't the only one hunting her. Declan wanted his secrets back. Moretti wanted them to destroy Declan. She threw her hot coffee in the man's face. He howled, stumbling back, clutching his eyes. Eliana didn't wait. She bolted past him, sprinting into the main stacks of the basement. "Get her!" the man screamed. 2 more men appeared from the stairwell. Eliana ran through the aisles of rolling shelves. She needed a weapon. She had nothing but books. She reached the end of the aisle and turned the wheel on the massive, crushing shelves. The heavy metal units began to slide together. The man with the coffee burns was charging down the aisle. "Stop!" he yelled. Eliana squeezed through the gap just as the shelves ground together, locking the man on the other side. She heard him pounding on the metal. She burst out of the emergency exit into the rainy alleyway. She was gasping for air, clutching her bag. A black SUV screeched to a halt in front of her, blocking her path. The passenger door flew open. "Get in!" It was the same command as the night before. Same voice. Eliana hesitated. Behind her, the library door banged open. The men were coming. She looked at the open car door. Declan was there. He looked worse than yesterday. Pale, sweating, his shirt changed, but his posture stiff. "Better the devil you know, Eliana," he shouted, extending his hand. She grabbed it. He pulled her in with surprising strength, and the car peeled away just as bullets sparked against the brick wall where she had been standing. Eliana slammed the door shut, her chest heaving. She turned to Declan. "You led them to me," she accused, hysteria bubbling in her throat. "They were tracking my phone," Declan rasped, leaning his head back against the seat. "The phone I left in the bag with the ledger you stole." "I didn't steal it. It fell into my bag," Eliana shouted. "And I just saved it from Moretti's men." Declan turned his head slowly. His eyes were dark, dangerous, but there was a flicker of something else. Respect? Or maybe just calculation? "You still have it?" Eliana clutched her tote bag. "Yes." "Give it to me." "No," Eliana said. The driver, Miller, glanced back, shocked. No one said no to Declan Cale. "No?" Declan repeated softly. "You need this book," Eliana said, her voice trembling but her chin high. "But right now, I'm the only one who knows what's in it. And those men back there know my face. If I give you this book, you'll just dump me on the side of the road, and Moretti will kill me." Declan studied her. The air in the car was electric. "So?" he asked. "So," Eliana swallowed hard. "I'm not giving it to you. Not until you guarantee my safety. I'm coming with you." Declan stared at her for a long moment. Then a ghost of a smile touched his lips. It was terrifying. "Drive, Miller," Declan said. "Take us to the safe house." "Boss, are you sure?" Miller asked. "She's a civilian." "Not anymore," Declan murmured, watching Eliana clutch the bag that held the fate of the city's underworld. "Now, she's leverage." The drive to the safe house took an hour, winding deep into the Cascade foothills. The rain had turned into a torrential sheet, isolating the world outside the tinted windows. Declan Cole had stopped speaking 20 minutes ago. His head lolled against the cool glass, his breathing shallow and wet. The adrenaline that had fueled his escape from the library was fading, leaving behind the stark reality of blood loss. "We're almost there, boss." "Stay with me," Miller said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He glanced at Eliana in the rearview mirror. "If he passes out, you keep him awake. You hear me?" "I hear you," Eliana said. She reached across the console, her hand hovering over Declan's arm. She hesitated, then touched his shoulder. The muscle beneath the suit jacket was rock hard, but his skin was burning. "Declan?" His eyes fluttered open. The irises were a startling shade of grey, now clouded with pain. "Still here," he rasped. "Unfortunately." The car turned off the main road onto a gravel track that wound upward through dense pine forests. At the summit stood the safe house. It wasn't a cabin. It was a fortress of concrete and glass, cantilevered over a rushing river gorge. It looked like a villain's lair from a movie, cold and imposing, yet undeniably beautiful. Miller pulled into a subterranean garage. As soon as the engine died, the silence was deafening. "Help me with him," Miller barked, jumping out. Eliana scrambled out and rushed to Declan's side. He tried to stand on his own, his pride clearly the last thing to die. But his knees buckled. Miller caught him under one arm, Eliana under the other. He was heavy, a dead weight of muscle and exhaustion. They dragged him into an elevator that opened directly into a sprawling living room with floor-to-ceiling windows. The view was a grey abyss of rain and trees. "The study! Couch!" Miller directed. They lowered Declan onto a massive leather sofa. He groaned, his hand clutching his side. Miller immediately tore open the dress shirt. Eliana gasped. The bandage from the night before was soaked through, a bloom of crimson spreading across his ribs. "I need the medical kit from the kitchen. And vodka. Lots of it," Miller ordered Eliana. "I'm not a nurse," Eliana panicked. "No, but you're the only one here who isn't bleeding or driving security detail. Move!" Eliana ran. She found the kit, a tactical trauma bag, and a bottle of crystal vodka. When she returned, Miller was on the phone, speaking in rapid-fire codes. He looked at her and covered the receiver. "Doctor is 40 minutes out. The storm washed out the bridge. We have to stabilize him." "We?" Eliana squeaked. "I have to secure the perimeter. Moretti knows we headed east. If they find the access road, we're dead." Miller grabbed a shotgun from a hidden panel in the wall. "Clean the wound. Pack it. Keep pressure. Don't let him die, Eliana. If he dies, I have no reason to keep you alive." With that chilling ultimatum, Miller vanished into the hallway. Eliana was alone with the monster. She looked down at Declan. He was conscious, watching her through half-lidded eyes. He looked vulnerable, a word she never thought she'd apply to him. "Miller has a dramatic flair," Declan whispered, a faint smirk tugging at his pale lips. "He won't kill you." "Stop talking," Eliana said, her hands shaking as she opened the trauma bag. She poured vodka over her hands, then over the wound. Declan hissed, his back arching off the leather. "Damn it! Sorry, Eliana stammered. She grabbed the gauze. "I archive maps. I restore 18th century vellum. I don't plug bullet holes." "Just press," Declan gritted out. Eliana pressed the gauze into the wound. He groaned, his hand coming up to grip her wrist. His grip was bruisingly strong. "Talk to me," he commanded, his eyes squeezing shut. "Distract me." "Talk about what?" "The book," he gasped. Why is it so important to you?" "It's not. My life is important to me," Eliana said, leaning her weight into the pressure. "But I looked at it last night. The names. Judge O'Reilly? He spoke at my graduation. He's supposed to be a hero." "Heroes are just villains with better PR," Declan muttered. "O'Reilly takes 50 grand a month to lose search warrants. And you? What do you take?" Declan opened his eyes. The pain was receding slightly, replaced by a feverish intensity. "I take order. Seattle is a chaotic city. I provide structure. I keep the drugs out of the schools and the violence in the shadows. Until Moretti. Moretti wants to take over. Moretti wants to burn it down. He deals in chaos. If he gets that book, he doesn't just blackmail the judges. He exposes them. The system collapses. The police force is decapitated. In the vacuum, he takes everything. Blood in the gutters." Eliana watched him. He truly believed he was the lesser of two evils. The ethical dilemma made her head spin. "The book," Eliana said softly. "I tried to read the last few pages. The numbers didn't match the dates. It looked like a code." Declan's eyes sharpened. "You looked at the back?" "I'm an archivist. I look at everything. It's a substitution cipher, isn't it? Based on a shifting key." Declan stared at her, ignoring the blood on his torso. "My father designed that code. No one has cracked it in 20 years. "He used the Dewey Decimal Classification for the shift," Eliana said simply. "The dates correspond to book release years. It's clever, but..." I know libraries. Declan started to laugh, which turned into a cough. I picked up an archivist, and she cracked the Kale family vault. He looked at her then, really looked at her. Not as a nuisance or a hostage, but as something rare. The intensity of his gaze made Eliana's breath hitch. His hand moved from her wrist to her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. You're dangerous, Eliana Corves. I'm terrified, she corrected him. Fear keeps you sharp. His voice dropped an octave. Stay sharp, because I'm not letting you go. Not now. The front door slammed open. Dr. Bennett had arrived. Eliana stepped back, her hands covered in the blood of the city's most feared man. As the doctor rushed in and took over, pushing her aside, she realized she had crossed a line. She wasn't just a witness anymore. She was an accomplice. And the terrifying part was, she didn't want to leave. 3 days passed in the glass fortress. The storm had cleared, leaving the sky a bruised purple. Ironwood was magnificent, filled with modern art, rare scotch, and silence. It was also a prison. Eliana had been given a guest suite that was larger than her entire apartment. The closet was stocked with clothes, silk pajamas, cashmere sweaters, jeans that fit perfectly. It was unsettling. It implied that women were a regular fixture here, or that Declan had been planning this for a long time. She saw little of him. He was holed up in the master wing, recovering. Miller watched her like a hawk, following her whenever she left her room. On the 4th morning, Eliana walked into the kitchen to find Declan sitting at the island. He was dressed in a black turtleneck and slacks, looking healed and dangerously refreshed. He was reading a newspaper, a cup of coffee in hand. "Good morning," he said, not looking up. "Is it?" Eliana grabbed an apple from the bowl, feeling rebellious. "I'd like to go home now. You're alive. The doctor said you're fine. Our deal is done." Declan folded the paper slowly. He pushed it across the marble counter toward her. "Read page 4. Eliana hesitated, then looked. A small article at the bottom. Arson attack on Seattle Public Library. Special collections destroyed. Eliana's heart stopped. She dropped the apple. "No. It happened last night," Declan said, his voice void of emotion. "A firebomb in the sub-basement. Your workspace. The police think it was a gas leak. We know better." "My colleagues," Eliana whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "Empty. It happened at 3 a.m. Moretti wanted to send a message. He thinks you hid the book there, or he just wanted to burn your world to the ground, to flush you out." Eliana gripped the counter, her knuckles white. Her life's work, the history she protected, gone, because she shared an Uber. "You did this," she hissed at him. "This is your fault." "It is," Declan admitted. He stood up and walked around the island. He didn't try to touch her, but his presence was encompassing. "And I will make them pay for it." "But you can't go home, Eliana. You don't have a home to go to. Your apartment is being watched. Your job is ash. You are a ghost." Eliana looked up at him, grief warring with rage. "So what am I supposed to do? Live here forever? Be your pet?" "No," Declan said. "I don't need a pet. I need a partner." He pulled a tablet from the counter. "Moretti thinks I'm weak. He thinks the gunshot wound took me out of the game. He's making a move on the shipping lanes tonight. He's hosting a charity gala at the Museum of Flight to solidify his political alliances. He expects to be the king of Seattle by midnight. And I'm going to walk through the front door," Declan said, a cold fire in his eyes. "I'm going to show them I'm not dead, but I can't walk in with a platoon of guards. That shows fear. I need to walk in with a date. Someone civilian, someone who makes me look untouchable, relaxed, domesticated." Eliana laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. You want me to be your date? To a room full of murderers? I want you to be my armor, Declan corrected, and in exchange, I give you the one thing you want. Freedom. Revenge, Declan said. You want to hurt the man who burned your library? Help me destroy him in front of the entire city. Eliana looked at the newspaper again, the charred remains of the archives. She thought of the vellum, the maps, the smell of old paper that she loved. Moretti had taken that from her. She looked at Declan. He was offering her a deal with the devil. But right now, the devil was the only one offering a sword. What do I have to do? She asked. Declan smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had seen. It was devastating. First, he said, we need to get you out of those jeans. The transformation was efficient and expensive. A stylist was brought in, blindfolded until they were inside the gates. 2 hours later, Eliana stood in front of the floor-to-length mirror in her suite. She barely recognized herself. The dress was a deep, midnight blue velvet that hugged every curve, with a slit that ran up to her thigh. Her hair, usually in a messy bun, fell in cascading waves down her back. Diamond earrings, real ones, caught the light. She looked like money. She looked like power. There was a knock on the door. Declan entered. He stopped dead. He was wearing a tuxedo, tailored to perfection. He looked every inch the aristocrat, the prince of the city. But as he looked at her, his composure cracked. He walked over to her, his gaze tracing the line of her neck. You look... He trailed off, clearing his throat. Adequate. Eliana smirked, feeling a sudden surge of confidence from the attire. Just adequate, Mr. Coyle. Distracting, he amended, stepping closer. Very distracting. He reached behind his back and produced a small, velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a necklace, a delicate silver chain with a pendant that looked like a drop of blood captured in ruby. It has a tracker in it, he said, fastening it around her neck. His fingers brushed her nape, sending shivers down her spine. And a microphone. Miller will be listening. If you say the word storm, we extract. No questions asked. Storm, Eliana repeated. Got it. He turned her to face the mirror, standing behind her. They looked like a power couple on the cover of a magazine. Dark, dangerous, and beautiful. Moretti will approach us, Declan murmured, his breath against her ear. He will try to intimidate you. He will try to separate us. Do not let him. You hold on to my arm and you don't let go. I can handle myself, Eliana said, though her heart was pounding. I know you can, Declan said. He met her eyes in the reflection. That's what I'm afraid of. He offered her his arm. Ready to enter the lion's den, Eliana? She took a deep breath, thinking of the ashes of her library. She took his arm. Let's burn it down, she said. Declan led her out of the room, and for the first time, Eliana didn't feel like a hostage. She felt like a queen entering her court, with the deadliest executioner in the city by her side. As they walked to the waiting limousine, Miller held the door. He nodded at Eliana, a sign of newfound respect. The engine purred. Seattle awaited, and the storm was just beginning. The Museum of Flight was a cavernous structure of glass and steel, housing relics of aviation history. Tonight, however, it housed the predators of Seattle's elite. Under the wings of a retired SR-71 Blackbird, round tables were draped in white linen, and the city's power players sipped champagne, pretending their fortunes weren't built on blood and backroom deals. Eliana Corvus stepped out of the limousine, the flash of paparazzi cameras blinding her momentarily. She felt Declan's hand settle on the small of her back, possessive, firm, and grounding. Smile, he murmured, his lips barely moving. You're the woman who tamed the ghost. Look the part. Eliana lifted her chin. She channeled every heroine she had ever read about in the archives. She wasn't an archivist tonight. She was the queen on the chessboard. She smiled, a cool, mysterious expression that made the cameras go wild. Inside, the air was thick with expensive perfume and tension. Conversations died as they entered. All eyes turned to Declan Cale. He was supposed to be dead, or at least crippled. Instead, he walked with the grace of a panther, unblemished, and accompanied by a stunning woman wearing the Cale family diamonds. "They look like they've seen a ghost," Eliana whispered. "They have," Declan replied, steering her toward the bar. "Don't drink the champagne. It dulls the senses. Soda water with lime." They mingled. Eliana played her part perfectly, laughing at bad jokes from city councilmen and charmed the wives of construction magnates, but she felt the eyes on her. Cold, calculating. Then the crowd parted. Giovanni Moretti approached. He was older than Declan, with silver hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. He wore a white tuxedo jacket, standing out like a flare in the sea of black suits. "Declan," Moretti said, opening his arms wide, "I heard rumors of your demise. I'm delighted to see they were exaggerated." "Disappointed is the word you're looking for, Giovanni," Declan said smoothly, shaking the man's hand. The grip lasted a second too long. Moretti's eyes slid to Eliana. He smiled, a shark baring its teeth. "And who is this exquisite creature? I didn't know you had a taste for the finer things, Declan." "Eliana, this is Giovanni Moretti. He runs the waste management contracts in the city," Declan said, his tone dismissing Moretti as a glorified garbage man. "Eliana is with me." Moretti took Eliana's hand and kissed the knuckles. His lips were cold. "Charmed. You must be new to this world, my dear. Be careful. It rains often in Seattle, and things tend to wash away." It was a veiled threat. "I know who you are. I know you're a loose end." The orchestra began a waltz. "I believe this is my dance," Moretti said, not asking. He pulled Eliana toward the dance floor before Declan could intervene without causing a scene. Declan stiffened, his hand twitching toward his jacket, but Eliana caught his eye. "I've got this," she signaled with a subtle nod. She allowed Moretti to lead her onto the floor. His grip was tight, painful. "You're a brave little librarian," Moretti whispered as they spun. "Did he tell you what happened to your precious books?" "Ashes." "I heard," Eliana said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her knees. "It was a gas leak. Tragic." "Accidents happen," Moretti smirked, "like car accidents or stray bullets. Tell me, Eliana, where is the book? Give it to me, and I'll let you walk out of here. I'll even pay for your plane ticket to, let's say, Switzerland." "I don't have the book," Eliana said. "Don't lie to me." Moretti's grip tightened on her waist. "Declan is using you. Once he decodes it, you're dead weight. Come to me. I treat my assets well." Eliana looked over Moretti's shoulder. She saw Declan watching them, his body coiled like a spring. He was ready to kill for her right here in the museum. She looked back at Moretti. She realized something. He wasn't just cruel, he was desperate. He needed that book because his name wasn't just in it, his debts were. She leaned in close, her lips brushing his ear. "Account 74 Alpha Zulu," she whispered. Moretti stumbled. He missed a step. "What?" "The Cayman routing number," Eliana lied. She didn't know if it was a Cayman number, but she remembered the sequence from the ledger she had glanced at. She remembered the cipher pattern she had mentioned to Declan. And the date, October 14th, 2021, the day the senator's daughter went missing. Moretti's face drained of color. He stopped dancing in the middle of the floor. You decoded it, he breathed. I'm an archivist, Giovanni. I remember everything, Eliana hissed, her eyes hard. If anything happens to me, or Declan, or even if I just trip on my way out, that account number goes to the FBI at dawn. I have a scheduled email set up. Dead Man's Switch. It was a total bluff. She had no email. She had no proof. But Moretti didn't know that. He only knew she had the book. Moretti let go of her as if she were burning hot. He looked at her with a mixture of hatred and terror. You're making a mistake, he rasped. The only mistake, Eliana said, smoothing her velvet dress, was burning my library. She turned and walked away. The music seemed to swell as she crossed the floor. Declan met her halfway, his eyes scanning her for injuries. What did you say to him? Declan asked, guiding her toward the exit. He looks like he's having a stroke. I told him I knew about October 14th, Eliana said, her voice shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Declan stopped. He stared at her, stunned. You remembered that entry? I have a photographic memory for numbers. It's a job requirement. Declan let out a breath that sounded like a laugh. He pulled her close, kissing her forehead in front of everyone. Remind me never to cross you, Eliana Corves. They exited the museum into the cool night air. The limo was waiting. As they slid into the back seat, the tension of the evening finally broke. Miller, drive, Declan ordered. Fast. As the car pulled away, Declan turned to her. The look in his eyes wasn't just gratitude anymore. It was hunger. The events of the night had shifted the ground beneath them. She wasn't a liability. She was his equal, and that was the most dangerous thing she could be. The drive back to Ironwood was silent, but the air in the cabin was thick enough to choke on. The rain had returned, drumming a relentless rhythm against the roof of the car. Eliana sat staring out the window, her hand absent-mindedly touching the ruby pendant at her throat. Her heart was still racing from the confrontation with Moretti. She had looked evil in the face, and smiled. It was exhilarating. It was terrifying. She felt a hand cover hers. Declan. She didn't pull away. She turned her hand over, interlacing her fingers with his. His skin was warm, his grip reassuring. You were reckless, Declan said softly, breaking the silence. I was effective, Eliana countered, looking at him. The passing streetlights illuminated the sharp angles of his face. You threatened a man who dissolves bodies in lie, Eliana. You bluffed him. It worked, didn't it? For now. But you've escalated things. He won't come after me anymore. He'll come after you to get the code. Then I guess you'll just have to keep protecting me, she whispered. Declan's jaw tightened. He pulled his hand away and ran it through his hair. This isn't a game. I brought you into this world to use you as a shield. I didn't intend for you to become the target. You didn't intend to pick me up in an Uber either. Plans change. The car swept into the underground garage of the safe house. As soon as the doors opened, Declan was out, pacing toward the elevator. Eliana followed, her heels clicking on the concrete. They rode the elevator in silence. When the doors opened into the living room, Declan turned on her. You don't understand, he shouted, the outburst startling her. I can't protect you if you're on the front lines. You're supposed to be the archivist, the quiet one, the civilian. I'm not a civilian anymore, Eliana shouted back, throwing her clutch bag onto the sofa. You said it yourself. I'm a ghost. My life is gone, Declan. You took it. So don't you dare stand there and tell me how to survive in the wreckage you created. She was breathing hard, her chest heaving beneath the velvet. Declan stared at her. His anger seemed to fracture, revealing something raw underneath. He crossed the room in 3 long strides. He didn't yell. He grabbed her face in his hands. I didn't want to destroy your life, he said, his voice rough. I wanted to save it." "Then save me," Eliana challenged him. He kissed her. It wasn't a gentle kiss, it was a collision. It tasted of adrenaline, fear, and pent-up desire. Eliana made a sound in her throat and grabbed his lapels, pulling him closer. The weeks of fear, the gunshots, the burning library, it all poured into this moment. Declan lifted her up, setting her on the edge of the heavy oak table. The expensive vases rattled. He moved with a desperation that frightened her, his hands tangling in her hair, his mouth devouring hers. "Eliana," he groaned against her neck. "I can't let you go, even when this is over. I can't. I don't want to go," she admitted, realizing it was the truth. The quiet life of the library felt like a distant dream. This fire, this man, was real. He pulled back, his forehead resting against hers, both of them gasping for air. His grey eyes were blown wide, searching hers for any sign of hesitation. Finding none, he kissed her again, slower this time, deeper. For an hour, the war outside didn't exist. There was only the storm inside the house. Later, the silence of the house returned, but it was different now, softer. Eliana lay on the sofa, wrapped in Declan's suit jacket, watching the rain streak the windows. Declan was pouring 2 glasses of scotch at the sidebar. He looked relaxed for the first time since she'd met him, his shirt unbuttoned, his guard down. "We need a plan for tomorrow," he said, handing her a glass. "Moretti will regroup. He'll realize you were bluffing eventually. We need to decode the rest of the book before he does." "I can do it," Eliana said. "If I have access to the old library database, I can access the Dewey backups remotely." "We'll set it up," Declan said. He sat next to her, running a hand down her arm. "But first..." A shrill beep cut through the air. It wasn't a phone, it was the security panel on the wall. A red light was flashing. Declan's demeanor changed instantly. The lover vanished. The killer returned. He set the glass down and moved to the panel. "What is it?" Eliana asked, sitting up, clutching the jacket. "Perimeter breach," Declan said, his voice ice-cold. "Sector 4. That's the ventilation shaft." "Moretti?" "No," Declan said, tapping the screen. "Moretti sends thugs. These are professionals. They bypassed the thermal sensors." He turned to her. "Get to the panic room, now." "Not without you." "Eliana, go!" Suddenly, the lights in the house died. The smart glass windows went opaque, activating the lockdown mode. The room was plunged into total darkness. "Miller!" Declan shouted into the void. There was no answer. "Miller is gone, Declan." The voice came from the shadows of the hallway. It wasn't Moretti. It was a voice Eliana recognized. A beam of a tactical flashlight cut through the dark, blinding them. Behind the light stood a figure holding a pistol. It was Detective Vance, the police officer who had taken Eliana's statement about a noise complaint 2 years ago. The man she had thought was one of the good ones. "Vance?" Eliana whispered. "Sorry, Eliana," the detective said, stepping into the room, flanked by 2 men in SWAT gear. "But the Kyle ledger doesn't just have criminals in it. It has cops, a lot of us, and we'd prefer those names stay buried." Declan stepped in front of Eliana. "You're making a mistake, Vance. You take me out, the city falls to chaos." "We prefer chaos," Vance smiled. "Chaos pays better." Declan reached for his gun, but a red laser dot appeared on his chest, then another on his forehead. "Don't," Vance warned. "We have the house surrounded. The FBI thinks we're here for a raid. By the time they figure out it's an execution, we'll be gone." He looked at Eliana. "And the girl comes with us. She's the only one who can read the book." Declan stood frozen. He could fight. He might even take 2 of them down. but Eliana would die in the crossfire. He slowly raised his hands. "Let her go," Declan said. "I'll give you the book. I'll give you the key." "I think we'll take both," Vance said. "Cuff him." As the men moved toward Declan, Eliana felt a cold clarity wash over her. She touched the ruby necklace at her throat, the one with the tracker, the one with the microphone. "If you say the word." She looked at Declan. He locked eyes with her, a silent plea for her to run, to survive. Eliana took a breath. She didn't run. She looked straight at Detective Vance and spoke clearly into the silence. "It really is a terrible storm tonight." Boom! The floor-to-ceiling windows behind them didn't just break, they exploded inward. The explosion didn't just shatter the glass, it shattered the world. For a heartbeat, there was no sound, only the violent pressure of the blast wave. Then, chaos roared back in. The tactical flashbangs that had been thrown through the broken windows detonated with blinding white light. Declan didn't hesitate. Before the glass shards even hit the floor, he had tackled Eliana, driving her down behind the heavy oak sofa. He covered her body with his own, a human shield against the shrapnel and the ensuing firefight. "Stay down!" he roared, his voice barely audible over the automatic gunfire erupting from the balcony. Miller hadn't just brought a car. He had brought a war. Black-clad figures repelled through the broken skylights, moving with the terrifying precision of a Reaper squad. The storm protocol wasn't an evacuation, it was a purge. Detective Vance, momentarily blinded and deafened, fired wildly into the smoke. His SWAT team, confused by the sudden ambush from above, scrambled for cover. But there was no cover. The lasers that had been trained on Declan's chest just seconds ago were now dancing across the chests of the corrupt officers. Thwip, thwip, thwip. Suppressor fire cut through the room. It was surgical. Brutal. Eliana pressed her face into the carpet, smelling dust and gun smoke. She could feel Declan's heart hammering against her back, not from fear, but from the raw adrenaline of violence. He shifted, pulling his own weapon from a hidden ankle holster he'd managed to access while pinned. "Miller! Status!" Declan barked into the comms. "Room clear in 3, 2, 1. Miller's voice crackled through the earpiece, calm as a pilot landing a plane. The shooting stopped as abruptly as it had begun. "Secure them," Miller ordered his team. Declan rolled off Eliana, immediately pulling her up to check her. His hands roamed over her arms, her face checking for blood. "Are you hit? Eliana, look at me, are you hit?" I'm okay," she gasped, her ears ringing. She looked around the room. The living room of Ironwood was a ruin. The beautiful art was shredded. The corrupt SWAT team was on the ground, zip-tied and groaning. Detective Vance was on his knees in the center of the room, bleeding from a shoulder wound, looking up at the barrel of Miller's shotgun. Declan helped Eliana stand. He brushed the glass dust from her velvet dress. Then he turned to Vance. The transformation was terrifying. The lover who had kissed her on the table was gone. The ghost was back. Declan walked over to Vance, his shoes crunching on the diamonds of broken safety glass. He didn't yell. He didn't strike him. He just looked down with eyes that were as cold and grey as the Seattle sky. "You brought a badge to a war zone, Vance," Declan said softly. "You thought the law protected you. But you forgot who writes the laws in this city." "Moretti?" Vance sputtered, coughing blood. "Moretti will kill you. He has the unions. He has the ports." "Moretti has nothing," Eliana said. Her voice was clear, cutting through the heavy air. She stepped out from behind the sofa. She didn't look like a victim. With her hair wild, her dress torn at the hem, and her eyes blazing, she looked like the mistress of the destruction. She walked to the table where her clutch bag had fallen. She pulled out the moleskin ledger. "Miller," Eliana said, "get me a laptop and a secure line to the Seattle Times." Vance's eyes widened. "You can't. You'll incriminate yourself." "No," Eliana smiled, a cold, sharp expression she had learned from Declan. "I'm an archivist. I know how to redact. I'm going to release the cipher key for every entry marked with Moretti's initials, and for the police payroll." She looked at Declan. "Shall we burn it down?" Declan looked at her, and the pride on his face was brighter than the flashbangs. He nodded. "Burn it all." 3 months later. The rain in Seattle never really stops, but tonight it felt different. It felt clean. Eliana Corvus stood on the balcony of the penthouse suite atop the Kale Tower, looking out over the glittering skyline. The city looked peaceful from up here. Down below, the chaos was still rippling through the courts. The release of the Kyle leaks had decimated the city's corrupt infrastructure. Giovanni Moretti was awaiting trial without bail, his empire dismantled piece by piece. Detective Vance had turned state's evidence to avoid the death penalty. Eliana took a sip of her wine. She wasn't wearing a cardigan. She was wearing a silk robe, the fabric smooth against her skin. She heard the door open behind her. Warm arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against a solid chest. "You're thinking about the library," Declan murmured into her hair. "I am," she admitted. "They started the rebuilding efforts today. I saw the news." "The anonymous donation of $5 million should speed things up," Declan said, dryly. Eliana turned in his arms to face him. He looked tired but content. The wound on his side had healed into a jagged scar, a permanent reminder of the night they met. "You know," Eliana said, tracing the line of his jaw, "I never did get to finish my ride that night. You technically still owe me an Uber trip to Capitol Hill." Declan chuckled, the sound vibrating through his chest. "I think you've upgraded your transport options, Mrs. Kyle." The name still sent a thrill through her. They hadn't done a big wedding, just a judge, Miller as the witness, and a signature on a piece of paper that bound her to the city's most dangerous man forever. "Mrs. Kyle," she repeated, testing the weight of it. "It sounds formidable." "It is," Declan promised. He tightened his hold on her. "You know, most people spend their whole lives looking for safety. They want the quiet job, the small house, the predictable routine. I had that," Eliana said. "It was boring." "And now?" Eliana looked over the balcony railing. She saw the black SUVs waiting below. She saw the security detail scanning the perimeter. She knew that there was a target on her back, that every day was a gamble, and that peace was a lie they told to children. She looked back at Declan. "Now, I have the storm." Declan leaned down, his lips brushing hers. "The storm suits you, Eliana. You were never meant for the archives. You were meant to make history, not organize it." He kissed her, and it felt like the first time in the back of that car. Danger and electric current, and the undeniable pull of fate. "Come inside," he whispered against her mouth. "Miller has the new construction plans for the library. I want you to approve the security system. I want it to be a fortress." "A fortress for books," Eliana smiled. "A fortress for you," Declan corrected, "in case you ever decide to go back to work." "I have work," Eliana said, pulling him toward the bedroom. "I have a city to run, and a husband to keep out of trouble." Declan laughed, a genuine free sound that belonged to a man who had finally found his equal. "Good luck with that, my love." As the glass doors slid shut, sealing out the rain, Eliana Corvus, former archivist, current queen of the Seattle underworld, knew one thing for certain. She should have cancelled that Uber. but she was so goddamned glad she didn't. That is the story of Eliana and Declan, a reminder that sometimes the wrong turn leads to the right destination, and that love can bloom even in the barrel of a gun. If you were hooked by the twists, the danger, and the romance of the Seattle underworld, please destroy that like button like it's a corrupt empire. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a chapter of our next story. Share this video with a friend who loves a dark romance, and let me know in the comments, would you have gotten into the car? Until next time, stay safe in the rain.